Hey there, this is Therese Skelly, and I am so excited that you are going to be listening to an episode of the Fiercely Brilliant podcast. Do you like those two words? Fiercely Brilliant. My hypothesis is that you are here for a reason. We all are. Our souls have led us on journeys that have very often taken some twists and turns, and sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes there's struggle and there's loss and there's challenge, and in the middle of that, there's always a way out. And it's those times that often lead us into our great life and work. So you're going to hear stories in these episodes of myself and other beautiful people that share the journey. They share how they got to the place where they're standing, working in their brilliance, and being the powerful leaders that they are. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Hey, this is Therese in another episode of the Fiercely Brilliant podcast. And oh my gosh, I have got a magical guest from down under. You're going to love the accent and more so the story. The story that Georgie is going to bring is really powerful. And so, Georgie Hansen, I'm so thrilled you were here. So take a minute to tell us what you do today. Like, what's your work and what you love about it?
Thank you. And I'll just preface this that this is not where I usually hang out. Sometimes
in the car, you're not doing your business in your car.
Yeah. Sometimes it's because that's easier. I have a husband at home, and he's like all over the place with his work outside. So it's sometimes easier to just go out in the car and type. But thank you for having me. I'm a few different things. I'm a publisher. And I come from a PR background.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what I've just realized in the last couple of weeks is actually I'm an artist and a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And I have a big story to tell. And I guess what I love about that is also shining a light on other people and their stories, because we all have a huge story to tell. But my background, I guess, in PR has always been like shining a light on the messages and on the beauty and the magic and the stories and the things that the publishing and the books that I create are telling the stories that don't usually get told, like the taboo subjects, the ones that make people a little bit uncomfortable, because that's, I guess, and this is something I say to people quite often. So I have people coming to me for guidance. I'm an intuitive guide and a whole range of things, but I'm comfortable in the dark and sitting with people in the darkness. And, like I've even this week, I've said to a few friends, okay, I'm down in the well with you. We've got tea and Tim Tams. I don't know if you have Tim Tams over there.
No, I don't.
They're like this beautiful chocolate biscuit. We've got tea and Tim Tams, and we're just going to sit. And I've got the torch, and I've got the ladder, and we've got the rope. And when we need to get back out, we can do that. But at the moment, we're just going to sit and breathe and take some space. And I think that is also what telling stories is about. And it's so. The books that I tell, it's not just, it's an energetic transaction. It's an energetic container where people feel safe, and we work through. The first book that I've got is called Extraordinary, to be launched in a few months. And it's about inspiring stories of children and adults living and loving beyond the label. So of disability and mental health and medical diagnosis. And these stories are not easy to tell.
Yeah, they're not shiny and glitzy and happy endings all the time. Yeah.
No, but they're the stories that the world needs right now. So,
well, I think the world needs tea and whatever those things are in the dark, because most people, like, we crave that. We crave somebody to be with us, and we're also at the same time terrified of falling in, not getting out. So just you starting that, hey, is anybody else like on listening going, oh God, will you take me there? Right? Like that was just I just want to punctuate how our souls need just the holding. So thank you for doing the holding in the world, because that's rare. Like there's a lot of people that they'll play in the shallow, they don't play in the deep with the tea. So yeah, I know you have a story that is it's a tragic story.
and yet it has informed everything in your life and your work. And so I just want to tell you guys, as you hear the story, I don't want you to say, oh, I can't relate, I didn't have that experience. It's easy to point and say, oh, that was hers, oh, that, thank God that didn't happen to me. I'm gonna stop listening. I want you to listen
Mm.
for the universality, listen for, because we've all had loss. We've all had to make sense of, like, wow, that's not how I thought it was going to go. We've all had to deal with tragedy and process anger or self blame. And so, even though you might not have had the exact same situation as Georgia, I want you to be focusing on, wow, where can I learn from her expansion through the tragedy? Deal?
Mm.
Okay. All right, Georgia. Why don't you
Thank
share?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that as well, because that's the biggest part of for women like me, is because a lot of people can't look at it. So it's
Right.
unfathomable. I don't want to look at that. And we end up really lonely because
Yes.
people walk
Yes.
away. So, yeah, my story is that 5 years ago, we've just gone through the fifth birthday anniversary. I was going to hospital to have my baby girl. We had three beautiful boys, and I knew of her for 10 years, I'd say. I knew her soul
Wow.
was coming. Yeah. I had seen her name written out on a chalk driveway in a dream. And so I already knew her name. I knew what she looked like. I would see her in toddlers,
Oh my gosh.
like with curly blonde hair.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I just knew it wasn't even that, like, oh, I need to have a girl like in my life. It's not, I had three boys, and on my, on my when I had my third son, I turned to my husband. I said, "She's still coming," and he said, "I know."
Oh God.
And it was this gender disappointment, but it wasn't because of, like, I needed to have a girl. It was just I knew her soul was coming.
Yes,
She was.
yes.
We had done this dance so many times, and I didn't even realize how strong our bond was so we went to hospital, and I just had this sense of, like, there was nothing wrong, perfect pregnancy, low risk.
Hmm.
Went to hospital, and on the way, I just felt like this sense of doom. That's the only way I can describe it. Like this impending sense of doom and I had the thought of what was going to happen did not occur to me. It was just
Okay.
the lack of excitement.
Yeah.
And so, and knowing that this was our dream coming true, so what, like, just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we arrived at hospital in very, very active labour, and we were made to wait in the waiting room, the consult room, for an hour before we were taken through. And the midwife was doing the checks and the Doppler, and I was literally 10 seconds between contractions at this point. So just doing my breathing, and I had done a sacred birthing program, so I was prepared. And we went and we sat on she laid me down and ended up calling a doctor in for the scanner, and they were all there was the three of them in the room, the midwife, my husband, and the doctor, all looking at the screen, all poker face, and I wasn't thinking much of it at this point still. And then she got a second doctor in, and it was when the second doctor, so they were all at the end of the table, and I saw the first doctor take her pager out, and just this movement of her going like this, and them all looking at each other. I was like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
happening? And that's when the doctor said, she put her hand on my knee and she said, "I'm so sorry, we can't find her. There's no heartbeat." And, like, here, I was heavily laboring. I'm like, well, she's right there. I can feel her. Like, find her.
He's coming.
And
Yeah. Right.
yeah. Um,
Oh.
what do you mean? What do you mean? And then a third doctor came in, and he was the one who had to confirm it. I'm the most senior. This is a major maternal hospital. I'm the most senior in the room. Three of us have confirmed that your baby is gone. And then my world exploded. And it was my husband came round, and he took my face into his hands, and because he had seen all along, he had seen, like, the lack of movement on the scanner, and he said, it's true. Like she's gone. I cannot ever tell this story without crying. But the most magical thing that happened next was, it was like, I explain it like Alanis Morissette off Dogma when she plays God.
Okay.
She comes in and she's this loudness, like this echo that is a vibration that we can't as humans take in. And that came through my body, in every cell of my body, and just said, this voice just said, everything is actually going to be okay.
Oh.
And I have always, like, I didn't know how, but I knew that I had to trust that. And that was like that faith in God, source, whatever you want to call it, was literally the thing that saved me. And so I all I knew was that, okay, I was still very, very active. At that point, my body went into shock and I had, like, the label was still going, but I wasn't really feeling it for a few moments. And then it ramped back up like 100-fold. And I said, just get her out of me, like cut her out. And they refused to do that. He talked me out of it. And then it was the most magical, sacred experience. And anyone who's been through it will probably say the same, that they can't explain whatever process of birth it is. Like most angel mums that I come into contact with, whether it's, most of them don't end up with a cesarean. Most of it is natural.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay.
Even if you've had the drugs, they don't work. So it's a God-like experience. It really is. Like, it's
sacred. Sounds like
sacred and holy. And she was in the room before she was physically in the room. I could, like, she wasn't in her body. Yeah, she wasn't in her body anymore. So she was born this most perfect, and she had this effect on the birth suite that night that I still, like, I was told afterwards that she had this huge effect on everyone because she was so fresh and so beautiful. And there was bruising, but she was just this perfect little angel. And I still remember the midwife holding her. For the first time I saw her, she was holding her draped in her arms, and like when babies are all like crunchy, she was just this perfect little, like, her arms were just grace, like she was pure grace, just drifting, like. And but I knew that she wasn't in her body anymore. She was a shell. She was in the room, and she was bigger than life. Like, she was,
wow.
So yeah, she would have been 5 at the end of July. And she was the catalyst for changing everything. Like,
that's what I'm
there's
going to ask
before
you.
and after.
Yeah. So like you said, I knew her. I knew of her. Like, so this wasn't a little soul that had a blip. This was very deep thing.
Intentional.
Right. And so tell the journey of when did you kind of go, oh, I'm supposed to do something with this now? Because you already had a business, you have other kids, you're everything, but when did you know, like, I'm supposed to help angel moms? I'm supposed to, and that's the term, right? So that's a term who have had stillborns.
Yeah. I didn't know that it was meant to help angel mums, but I knew that there was something. I just knew in that moment that he told me that God came through me. Everything's actually going to be okay. I knew that there's something bigger at play. There's something far bigger than I can imagine at play.
Right.
And that if I'm to survive this, then I have to do something. Like, there's a legacy that I'm meant to leave. Like, it's almost like a responsibility, a duty of care that I need to carry on this legacy. And I remember grabbing one of the midwives' arms and begging her, why is this happening? And she looked at me, she said, I don't know. But it was like, I don't know, and I'm so sorry. And then she just disappeared. But it was like she took my unknowing
from me.
yeah, and
That's
I just knew,
fascinating.
like, it was like, I don't know, I'm so sorry, and I'm literally only just realizing that right now in this moment. But it was like she took that, and I never saw her again. She was there for a blip, and I don't know who she is, because she was just helping in the room. But I just knew there was something, and I saw myself. Um, it was 24 hours later. I was in the middle of the night. I was chatting to someone, and I knew then that some part of Amelia would come back,
Mhm.
and that she would be like, could have another daughter. And I thought, like, she'd just come back, but it was like 2.0. But I realized that was my survival to get through the next 15 months until she was here, and then realize, she's still out there, she's like
That's not
doing
her.
her
Yeah.
thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
But I saw myself, within within a few weeks. I saw myself on stage, and I saw, like, in a big packed arena, and I saw this grown woman who I knew was my daughter with me on stage. And all I cared about, like, I've never been one to want to have, like, to be on stage or to be a performer or to be,
Fame, yeah.
on anything like that. But I knew that it was actually just a knowing. It wasn't a desire. It was just, okay, well, I've got to make that happen because that's her legacy. But the grown woman was my daughter, and all that meant to me that she would come back and she would survive and she would make it to adulthood. And so that's what I thought, I've got 20 years or so. But I knew that I would be sharing a message of some sort. I would be
Yeah.
talking to, like, on a global scale,
Yeah.
on a global stage.
Here we are.
That's all I knew. Yeah.
So how, a lot of women and a lot of people, again, I said in the beginning, you might not have had a stillborn baby, but you've had a death, you've had a loss, you had hopes for something that have been dashed. So how did you go from, raw rage, grief, pain, anger to I can accept this? Because there's a part of you that accepted it instantly, but I'm assuming there was all the human emotions as well, right? And that's
Yeah.
the work is how do you get into acceptance with what is and process all the things?
I think it's a hard one because I did accept it straight away. It was because of that knowing that there is, and faith, like having a faith in something, that there was something bigger, something far bigger than me at play. But it's like a simultaneous, I can't accept this, but I have to. Like, you
Yeah,
just, there's
right.
no choice. There's actually, you can choose to live the rest of your life um, without accepting it, but that would be dishonoring her. And I could never have dishonored her, because I knew that wasn't her purpose. Like, she was intentional. There was a
Yeah, yeah.
reason why it happened for me. And I have friends who can't accept it, and who can't, like, I guess, and like really good friends. For me, it's, if I don't accept it, the whole universe ceases to exist. And I for me, like, there was no choice but to accept it,
Yeah.
because otherwise I wouldn't be here, and none of us would be here, and all of this would just be random,
Wow.
and I
It
can't
really
accept
is.
that.
It really is the meaning you give something. So it doesn't matter what the event is or the level of tragedy or loss. The meaning you gave this was there's a high purpose and her legacy goes on. And Amelia is still here. And I, of course, how dare I not
Yeah.
do that job? How dare I say no to this? Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and that's the miracle, right? Like, it's the shift of perspective from fear to love, shift of, and no matter what, like, miracles are big and small and all over the place, but it doesn't matter the size of the event. There's no hierarchy in trauma. It's
yes.
just it's the perception that you give it. I and this is a huge thing. This is an unfathomable thing. It goes against the natural order of things. It's all of those human things, yet it's also, and this is what I want to teach in the world, and this is what I'm bringing to life, is that there is another way to move through this. There is another way. It breaks my heart when I see anyone going through any kind of loss and feeling like they have to live in the trauma or in the loss forever. Like, there is another way to move through and to live your best life thriving.
So when we talked before the call, you said, I find magic in the tragic. And so, I was a therapist. Of course, you have to process all the feelings. We're not saying suppress or deny or pretend, but what's the process for how do you find the magic in the tragic? Like what steps do you have, or what do you share with people for that?
And it is exactly that. It's by working through. It's not bypassing any of it. It's feeling your way through. It's literally, and then next layer. Okay. And then, but it's also in every single layer, it's finding the beauty in the moments and in the small things. And, like we had this guardian angel rose that was gifted to us, and that became like my husband nurtured that rose like it was his daughter.
Literal rose, a plant. Is
a
that
literal plant rose?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And that so the meaning we gave that rose, and it bloomed. I said a post about it the other day. It bloomed every single day. Every single day there was a new bud. Like it went against all of the rules of nature.
Yeah, sure.
It bloomed every single day until my daughter was born, until my rainbow baby was born. And then it only had buds on it twice more, and that was the day that both my husband's grandmothers died. So it was.
And rainbow baby is a baby after a miscarriage or stillborn, in case you wonder.
Yeah.
So her next daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so that, and it's just the little things. It's funny, like every day I would look at that photo, I'd take a photo of it. I'd journey its, I'd track its journey, and I would, but it's everything is so much more like, because of the depths you go through when you have had a significant loss, because if you feel it and if you allow yourself to go to those depths, it's like, you can equally feel the same in pleasure and in bliss and in joy. And it's like your heart expands to have the capacity, and it's like it's a circle, isn't it? As it expands, if we can feel that down there, we can feel that over there.
You can't just cut half of it off and expect to live a full life, right?
No. So I guess that's the thing, is allowing yourself to feel it so that you can feel the joy on the other side, because there's always light and dark. It's the polarity of life. So, yeah.
So to me, I do a lot of work with identity and who you become in the journey. And you kind of stepped into a little bit with that last piece about opening your heart. But Georgia, who was the before versus like who have you become now as a result of, you're an unequivocal yes to this work? And so what's changed in terms of the becoming part of you, the identity of you?
It's funny because there's so much has happened in that 5 years. I have also gone through a huge physical transformation. I have lost 45 kilos, and I had a very chronic health issue come up that was all part of like my becoming. And I actually had, I had a magazine that I was about to put out last year called The Chrysalis. Like it's you can't make this shit up. So the before woman was someone who knew her light inside, but was afraid to share it.
Wow.
And I think now I just know, and I'm not afraid. And I, each layer and edge of your transformation, you just get more and more grounded and landing in yourself. And I know that I'm here for a message, and it's bigger than me. It's before I already always knew there was something big going to happen in my life, and I'd already been through quite a lot to get to that point. And I couldn't have known it was this. But yeah, I always felt like I was wise, and I was connected, and I knew my intuition, but I was afraid to share it because I don't know why I was, but now I'm just, like you said, unequivocal. I have zero cares whether I'm making people uncomfortable, because
nice. I was going to ask you that. Do people ever be like, oh, that's so horrible. You should be really angry. You should like, did it cause weirdness in relationships and or have people like, because I know in our culture we don't do death. We do not know how to talk about it. We do not know how to be with people in it. We're like, oh, they're better off. They're with Jesus now, which makes me want to slap people because it's a platitude. It's not helpful. And so did you get that? And how do you instruct people to be with somebody that has just experienced a tragic loss?
Yeah, I got that a lot. Yeah, I did. I lost 90% of my circles. I lost, like dear friends, best friends for 25 years. I just couldn't fathom my situation, couldn't put themselves in it. So it was easier to just walk away. So yes, definitely I lost people. I've had attacks. I've had people who tell me I shouldn't be sharing. I've had people who I shouldn't be sharing photos of my dead baby online. I shouldn't be, I shouldn't. People who've questioned what actually happened, like, didn't you go to your appointments? Like, there's a lot of, I know, it's crazy. And what I would say, the biggest thing I would say is what makes me feel when I tell Amelia's story, when I tell someone, because it comes up a lot. Like, people ask, I've got 4 children. They ask, even just the question of, well, how many children do you have? I can't not, there's some times where I don't, because it's like, I know that conversation's going to go somewhere I don't want it to go, but it's just, it comes up a lot. And so what irks me the most is when people go, oh, and then that's it.
Because again, we don't know how to be with grieving or bereaved. Right.
Or it takes away the, like, oh my God, how can you not, like, she's my
okay, so then let's think, what would be maybe it will help people, right? Let's do some teaching. Yeah. What should people do if somebody says, I lost a child, or I had a stillborn, or I miscarried, or even a death, my husband just died, my dog just died? What would be an appropriate answer, or an answer that would have felt better for you in the time?
And this is what I love the most, is when people say, oh, I'm like, they just show that they get it. Like, they feel it. They feel it, whether, even if they tear up, that makes me feel like, oh, she had an effect on them. Like, they feel her vastness. They feel her saying, I'm sorry, but not in a, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I have no words. If someone said, I'm sorry, I don't know, I cannot imagine, or I'm so sorry. One thing that's really, like, if people try and compare the loss, though, that's a, like, if you compare, because no one's loss is comparable, but a loss of a child or an infant is incomparable to another loss. So don't compare the loss. But I'm so sorry. I don't have the words. Like, if it's a fresh loss, if it's only just happened, offering some kind of, like, practical support. I'm here for you. Do you need me to pick up the kids? Do you need me to drop around a meal? But also don't ask, actually, just
because they're gonna go, they don't even know, in shock.
No, just drop a meal around. Don't expect anything, even a thank you. Don't expect that for a bit, because they'll come back and they'll thank you. But just that, like, just showing up and not walking away. And even if it's showing up with no words, it's like, you're there, and I'm really sorry. I have nothing to say other than I'm here for you. So yeah, they're just a couple of things.
That's so good. A few years ago, it was so sad. I think he was 20. My son's friend accidentally overdosed on fentanyl, and this was my son's from kindergarten best friend. And so he and this other friend were going to go to the funeral, and I was driving him, and they said, Mom, we don't know what to say to Susan, his mom. And I said, you tell her you don't know what to say to her. Lean in. And I'm so proud of these. I'm going to cry. These boys, 19, 20-year-olds, walked up. It was an open casket, and they were there. And then later they went to the mom, and she said, tell me the stories of him. Now, obviously, with your daughter, there wasn't the stories, but I taught the boys, say that you don't know you don't know what to say. Just be with it. And then share the stories if possible. right?
Yeah.
So we got to train people,
Yeah.
lean the fuck in. Don't go,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe you'll get a kid next time, like don't say
Oh,
stupid shit.
no,
like lean
people say
into
such
the experience.
stupid stuff. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah,
yeah.
lean in, feel it, and let them see that you feel it, because the hardest thing and say their name, the hardest thing for a mum who's lost a child is the silence, like the deathly silence, like if it's a stillbirth, the silence in the room, like
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah.
yeah, like but the silence that comes after it is haunting. And like, even though I had my 3 kids around, it's the silence in the middle of the night, like when you're supposed to be feeding your child, and it's the silence when people don't show up, or they don't phone you, or they don't, like, it's people think that you want time and space, which you do, but they also need to know that you're there if they need you. So
Well, I
yeah,
feel
that was
like it's like there's an old narrative of like, I don't want to upset her if I bring it up. And it's the opposite. I don't want to
mm,
make it invisible, right? That's what it is. Basically, you're saying is, and so look at your own, with the boys I was talking about, they were saying, I'm uncomfortable because I don't know what to say. So I gave them that counsel. But most of us as adults, like, I can't feel that shit. Like that is like, her pain is
mm,
too much for me.
yes,
And you can say that I don't know. I'm in so much pain just being with your pain. That would have probably been
mm,
relished for you. That would have been like, my God, you're seeing me. It's the not
yes,
seeing people. It's the like platitudes or
yeah,
just running over it. That invisibility, that isolation, that alienation. And like you say, you lost 90%. I'm stunned. But I get it because our society sucks dealing with death, and particularly
sucks.
stillborns. Like if somebody's 87, you're like, oh, they had a good life, blah, 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 blah. But a stillborn, what the
Yeah.
fuck do you say, right? Like there's no words, but you got to find words. And I know I'm getting a little preachy here. I'm getting kind of preachy because I see the
I love it.
pain. I
I love
see
it.
I see where we as a society are really failing.
Oh,
We're failing
yeah,
totally.
we are. And this is like, I've been in different places and seen other cultures and how they deal with death, and it's so beautiful. And we just can't, like, it's just, and I've said this from the beginning, it's just shit the way that we deal
No,
with
truly.
grief and death. And death is just as much a part of life, and it's just as sacred as life. Like it is one and the other, they both go together. It's against the natural order of things, but it's still it's sacred, and it needs to be treated as such. And finding the finding the magic in that, and it's not for everyone, and I understand that, but it's just be, yeah, like you said, just be with it, just feel your way through, just if and that's the other thing that we'll be producing as well as tools and resources, because there was nothing energetically available for what I needed. I remember my best friend was researching all night, one like after Amelia died. She was like, I don't know how to help you. And I'm research, like she's told me many times, like she was up all night looking for resources and support of how to help a friend who's just lost a baby. And there's nothing. There was no energy. Like, do you know what I got offered? I got offered a midwife appointment to come. Like, your body still goes through the same
Yeah,
postnatal
it's still birth
stuff.
the baby. Yeah.
Yeah. One midwife appointment in my house, and I didn't feel like going. I didn't feel like her coming that day, so that was it. And if I needed my bereavement midwife, I would have to reach out to her because she's so under-resourced that it was never like a proactive thing.
Yeah.
And I was one of the good ones that's dealing well with it.
Right.
So
Right.
there was a support group at the hospital that we went through, and that's where I've met a lot of my friends. But even that was like red tape. You had to get assessed that you were okay and that you weren't too messed up to get support group. And I'm like, there's no energetic support. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you and me work in the energetic level. You either go see a psychologist and you go on drugs, or like you're same thing they do with the antidepressants. And that's fine. If that's what you need, that's what you need. But there's deeper levels to it than that. And there's no resources out there to help women through the trauma. Like you can go see a trauma counselor, but I don't know any trauma counselors that have actually
They
experienced
don't
it.
have the experience. Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so I know you are creating something. You and
Yeah.
your friend
Yes.
Marlene is creating resources for this.
Yeah. Support groups, collect like a membership. We're in the process of the digging around and combining out like combined magic, because it's been something I've been working on and researching for the last 5 years, and it's the tools and the resources and the books and the support and the energetic support and the women circles of women who come together and be in like a collective, and so it's exciting.
So when this episode airs, by then, hopefully, Georgia will have links and information. So also, where can they follow you? I love your Facebook posts because Georgia is unapologetic. Like, hey, it's Amelia's 5th birthday today, and this is what I'm going through. And I just want you to watch what she does, see how she speaks about it, see literally people tell her to shut up and take the photos down and to, go away, you're making me uncomfortable, and you don't. And so I want people at least to follow you on Facebook. We'll put the link there. And is there anything else, any other place they should follow you at, or anything else they should know about?
I'm on Instagram as well, and we will be mainly on Instagram when the links and things. There'll be lots of stuff coming, but definitely I'm on Facebook, and I'm showing up there, committed to myself for the rest of my life. Until Facebook becomes something else. But
no, what I'm hearing is you're committed to the truth and speaking your truth, and being unapologetic. And if anybody has an issue, they can
take it out with themselves.
Okay, so this has been, this is interesting where this went. I didn't anticipate it going here, and it so needed to go here. It needed to go to some awareness and some advocacy, because there's no reason to let a woman who has just lost a child get abandoned because you don't know what to say. And so to me, if you're listening to this, look inside yourself. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. You're not a grief counselor. Nobody expects you're going to have the right words, but do not abandon people because you are uncomfortable with their pain. That's my challenge to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Whew. All right. Is there any final word? Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I think it's just, find the magic and the grace in everything, in the deep trenches of life and in the joy. Yeah.
And that's possible, right? That's your story, because a lot of other women, this would have broken them. There's a lot of research that this breaks a marriage.
It does. Yeah.
Tragedy, loss, death breaks up marriages. You could have been bitter. You could have, you could have not had another child, or resented the rainbow baby, or put Amelia into her. It could have been just a cluster. And here you are, this beautiful demonstration of a woman who knew her purpose and is an unequivocal yes. And so thank you so much for sharing your magic and Amelia's life and her journey with us all. So,
thank you so much. I'm deeply appreciative, and for you seeing all of that as well, because it's not easy to look at, and it's to see beyond it, though. You get to see beyond and see the light. So yeah.
Right. Magnificent. And I'm going to say, if you're listening to this, who needs to hear it? You might know somebody that had a loss. You might know somebody that just needs to be remembering that, wow, there's a greater purpose than the tragedy that I'm in right now. And so I want you to share this episode, because somebody needs to hear this. And so I'm going to trust your intuition, and you will share this where it goes. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Georgia, much love. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, this is Therese, and I'm so excited that you were with us today for another episode of the Fiercely Brilliant podcast. If you are inspired to get to that brilliant place, if you heard some wisdom today that made you think, yeah, I need some help in that area, I would encourage you to have a conversation with me. Super simple. You just go to thereseskelly.com/let's connect. It's a no charge, no pressure conversation. And if I can support you to clear the blocks, to really step into that brilliance, oh my gosh, it would be a delight. And I'll be honest with you, we'll just have a great conversation and see where we can take it. Peace and blessings. Bye.